In today's news, kids are prohibited from using gendered names at school. America and China slashed tariffs by over 90% in a surprise 90-day truce. And the last American-Israeli hostage has finally been released by Hamas. Let's dive into these stories. A nationwide controversy over transgender students' rights in schools has intensified as at least 10 states now prohibit students from using preferred names or pronouns without parental consent. The debate reached new heights this week when research from an education consortium revealed that 70% of surveyed schools now require informing parents when students request gender identity changes, a policy that's dividing communities across America and the United Kingdom.
There are many things that are important, like single-sex spaces, for instance, like making sure the sport is fair and that boys aren't playing in girls' sports, for example, and hurting them, where they have totally different physical characteristics.
Premier Danielle Smith announced even stricter measures, going beyond name changes to include medical interventions.
Prematurely encouraging or enabling children to alter their very biology or natural growth, no matter how well-intentioned and sincere, poses a risk to that child.
Supporters of notification requirements, like this parent at the Chino Valley Unified School District Board meeting, argue parental involvement is essential.
This is our children. When they decide to be boy or girl, they want to be whatever they want to be, they will come to me. I will comfort them.
However, LGBTQ+ advocates warn these policies could endanger vulnerable youth, especially those in unsupportive homes. Marnie Panis, a diversity consultant and transgender Edmontonian, offered this stark assessment.
I can't even begin to imagine what this will do to those children who need that care. There will be children, there'll be youth, there will be people who will die because of this. And the blood is on the hands of this government.
The scientific evidence appears to support concerns about mental health impacts. A landmark study from the University of Texas found using chosen names for transgender youth reduced depression by 71% and suicide attempts by 65%. Educators find themselves caught in the middle of these competing priorities. As one teacher in the UK explained,
I think schools have a responsibility to educate children about different aspects of gender, different types of relationships, just to ensure that we talk about and respect people's values. When it comes to pronouns, I just think it's a matter of respect.
The debate has sparked heated exchanges on television talk shows. When discussing parental notification, Piers Morgan and his panel shared strong opinions.
You'd be furious, and you'd have a right to be furious, wouldn't you, Piers?
Do you think
because
so?
Absolutely. We have to understand and remember what it is a school is supposed to do. A school is supposed to be there to look after our child and care our child. It's essentially acting as a parent when we're not. And it's supposed to be there to not only help our child, but to educate our child.
Legal challenges to these policies continue to mount. The ACLU has filed lawsuits in multiple states, arguing the restrictions violate the Equal Protection Clause, Title IX, and Title VII. For students caught in this political crossfire, the stakes couldn't be higher, as one Utah advocate explained.
It's a matter of life and death for trans students. There's a lot of studies that indicate that when chosen names and pronouns are used, suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts and self-harm decrease.
California has taken the opposite approach, recently enacting legislation that prohibits mandatory parental notification, prioritizing student privacy. Meanwhile, Colorado students are advocating for a uniform policy allowing them to use non-legal names. As these policies continue to evolve, the debate reflects broader tensions between parental authority, student autonomy, and the responsibilities of educational institutions in an increasingly complex social landscape. Up next, a surprising breakthrough in the US-China trade war has sent global markets soaring, as both nations agreed to a major 90-day tariff reduction during weekend talks in Geneva, Switzerland. The deal announced May 11th temporarily slashes US tariffs on Chinese imports from a punishing 145% to 30%, while China drops its duties from 125% to just 10%, a move that U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer says will help address America's massive trade imbalance.
Just remember why we're here in the first place. The United States has a massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So the president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs, and we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
I would just conclude with saying it was done in the spirit of cooperation, shared interest, mutual respect, and we look forward to sharing the details with you tomorrow morning.
The agreement comes after months of escalating tensions that had disrupted $600 billion in bilateral trade, prompted widespread layoffs, and threatened global supply chains. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent emphasized the desire for balanced trade rather than economic decoupling.
Neither side wants a decoupling. We do want trade, We want more balanced trade.
Market reaction was immediate and powerful. The Dow Jones surged to 222.92, while European shipping giant Maersk saw its shares jump 12% on expectations of resumed container traffic. BNY strategist Jeff Yu describes the significance.
So according to the statement, 91% of tariffs imposed since this process began have been removed by both sides, and I think that is warmly welcome to the global economy. I think markets were looking at anything below 50 or 60 would have been a good outcome, to get to where we are.
Before this agreement, the International Monetary Fund had slashed its global growth forecast to 2.8% for 2025, with U.S. GDP growth expected to drop to just 1.8%. Goldman Sachs had warned inflation might double to 4% by year-end if tariffs remained in place. But economists and policy experts have raised concerns about the deal's temporary nature. Greg Valliere from AGF Investments cautions.
I'm happy to see this agreement, and I'm happy to see the markets up, but I think we still have a long way to go before there's a deal.
Critics point out that the 90-day window provides only a short-term fix without addressing deeper structural issues, including intellectual property disputes and China's technological ambitions. The Council on Foreign Relations notes that complete economic decoupling is likely impossible, given the interdependence between the world's two largest economies. The talks in Geneva, which U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent described as productive, involved key figures from both sides, including Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng.
The Swiss government has been very kind in providing us this wonderful venue, and I think that led to a great deal of the productivity we've seen.
While the U.S. focuses on reducing its trade deficit, China is dealing with its own economic challenges. Despite the trade truce, analysts say China will likely continue its planned stimulus measures.
When they released the joint statement with the U.S., China also released a white paper looking at the next 10 years, look at the strategic imperatives all the way out to 2035, building resilience.
The deal establishes a consultation mechanism for ongoing trade issues, but excludes de minimis exemptions for low-value e-commerce shipments and maintains sector-specific tariffs on critical industries like semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, and steel. Former Trump administration officials have criticized the agreement, noting that even a 65% tariff reduction still represents a wall, not a gateway to trade. Meanwhile, analysts like Tom Nunlist of Trivium China suggest that China holds a stronger negotiating position, bolstered by its pivot to Southeast Asian markets. As both nations prepare for the next phase of negotiations, the question remains whether this temporary ceasefire will lead to a more sustainable agreement or merely postpone an inevitable return to trade hostilities. And finally, a moment 583 days in the making. Eden Alexander, the last American hostage held by Hamas, is free today after being handed over to the Red Cross in Gaza. The 21-year-old dual U.S.-Israeli citizen was captured during Hamas's attack on October 7th, 2023, while serving as an IDF soldier near the Gaza border.
And he's coming home to his parents, which is really great news. I mean, to me, it's big news.
The release comes after direct negotiations between the U.S. and Hamas with minimal Israeli involvement. Hamas described it as a goodwill gesture ahead of President Trump's Middle East visit this week. In Alexander's hometown of Tenafly, New Jersey, hundreds gathered to celebrate, having waited anxiously since dawn.
Well, it makes me feel happy. It shows that the world is there's still hope in the world. That I felt as if there's anti-Semitism everywhere, and now here we are still a stronger community no matter what the world is.
The scene in Tenafly was electric as news of the release broke.
I think the thing that is most important is that when Idan comes home, that he gets to see how everybody's here supporting him, that we've been here all along.
For Alexander's family, the reunion was overwhelming. His mother, Yael, traveled to Israel to meet him at a military base near the Gaza border, their first contact in nearly 20 months. Alexander was among approximately 250 people abducted during the October 7th attack that killed about 1,200 Israelis. Hamas released propaganda videos showing him in November 2024 and April 2025, revealing his deteriorating condition in captivity. The release was orchestrated through an unusual diplomatic channel. According to Axios, a Hamas official contacted Bashar Ababa to establish dialogue with Trump's administration. Medical evaluations indicate Alexander's condition is stable overall, though requiring further assessment after his prolonged captivity. Hours after his release, Alexander's father Adi expressed the family's gratitude.
It is wonderful to have Idan home. Really a gift from God to watch him hug Yael, his brother, and his sister, knowing that his suffering is over and that our family can finally begin to heal. First and foremost, I want to thank President Trump, Ambassador Witkoff, and especially soon Idan will be home in in the United States, in New Jersey, watching his little brother play basketball, reuniting with his friends in New Jersey. He's 21 now, and those happy times may include a beer or two, but we will never forget the first beer he had on the rooftop of this very building since his release.
The release comes at a critical moment for Gaza, where the UN recently warned that 2.1 million people face critical risk of famine under an Israeli blockade.
A big sack of flour that used to cost $5 to $8 now costs more than $300. Some people even call the police on us claiming we're hoarding. I'm not hoarding anything. I buy a sack of flour just to sell it and make a $5 profit so I can support my wife and family.
The UN Secretary General expressed relief while calling for further action.
Secretary General welcomes the release of Idan Alexander, an American-Israeli national who'd been held hostage in Gaza since the 7th of October 2023. The Secretary General is profoundly relieved that Mr. Alexander has been freed and is now returning to his family after this harrowing ordeal.
For Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the release brings mixed political implications. While he claimed credit for the release, citing military and diplomatic pressure, Israeli media reported that Alexander refused to meet with him, citing dissatisfaction with the government's handling of the hostage crisis.
This was achieved thanks to our military pressure and the political pressure exerted by President Trump. It was a winning combination.
He was reportedly told only after Idan's release was agreed.
With 58 hostages still held in Gaza, Alexander's father emphasized the work is not complete.
The release is not just about our family. Because of the leadership of the president, it also means that tomorrow, literally tomorrow, a new negotiation will begin that could lead to the release of more hostages and eventually the end of this war. For me personally and for my family, the effort to bring home all 58 hostages will continue until they are all.
If you enjoyed this video, check out our other awesome videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.